From Universal Studios Hollywood, welcome to Home and Family.
Brighten up your day, the Home and Family way.
Up next, we have author with us, Nancy Spiller. She is talking about her new book. It's called Compromise Cake, and it's about her mom's fruit cake and how that changed her life. It's a great story. Don't miss it. We are back now with author Nancy Spiller. She's sharing with us her new book. It's called Compromise Cake, Lessons Learned from My Mother's Recipe Box. It is a memoir, and it's about the time she spent with her mother who suffered from mental illness. Welcome,
yes,
Nancy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
This is not a cookbook, right? What is? How would you describe this book?
It's a memoir that started with, it's about the good times that I had with my mother when we were in the kitchen together when I was a child. She taught me how to cook, and she was a very enthusiastic and very competent, capable cook. And then she was unhappy, she suffered mental breakdowns, and she divorced from my father, and she no longer cooked.
How young were you?
Yeah, how old were you?
Well, I was, when I started cooking with her and came into the kitchen and wanted to learn how to make something out of nothing, as you can do as a child in the kitchen, I was about 4 or 5 years old.
Oh, you were young.
Yeah, so I was young. But she was teaching me how to do all these wonderful things in the kitchen. It was kind of magical. I learned how to make cream puffs when I was, you know, like in first grade.
Sure.
That's a neat trick when you're in first grade.
Right.
You had a sister too, did you not? Or
yes,
no, yeah.
And I had an older sister. I had 3 siblings, so I had an older sister and I had 2 brothers, and no one else was particularly interested in cooking and learning how to cook from my mother. So.
Tell us a little bit about your mom, who you say, you know, she suffered from mental illness. Could you categorize what she particularly had? What kind of mental illness?
Well, it's hard to say because I think that the diagnosis has changed through the years. So, I mean, when I look back on it, I think that she might have been suffering from postpartum depression. She had 4 children, and she had, you know, seemed to be having breakdowns after having each child, after, you know, with the second child that she had. And
you can see a difference in her demeanor over here.
Yes.
Yeah. And your father just up and left? What happened with your dad?
Well, my father at the time, he divorced, he remarried, he moved distance away from us, and that was fairly typical of the era in which this happened. I mean, this was the early 1960s.
How did you survive? Where'd you get the money from? Where'd you?
Oh, well, there was child support. There was child support and some alimony. There was my mother's family was helping out a little bit with the support and so on, and but basically we were left in her custody. 3 of us were, the 3 younger children were in her custody, and she just didn't, you know, and she just didn't really care to continue to be a parent. So we really taken care of ourselves.
Well, I mean, there's some wonderful topics with this. I mean, the one is mental illness, and as a young child, you recognize that even at a young age that your mother was going through this transition in her life. Yes?
Yes. Well, I saw that she was very sad, that she no longer cared, she was no longer engaged with life. And so as a child, and I've met so many other women that have had these similar experiences with their mothers who, you know, gave up on the project, you know, in the midst of their childhood, where they became the parent for their parent. And that was the situation for me and my siblings, that, you know, we were left to we were constantly trying to get mother to cheer up and get back to being a mother so we could get back to being kids.
Yeah.
You know, so you become the parent in that situation.
And it led you to a recipe box.
Oh, well, I had the recipe box for a number of years.
Your mother's?
My mother's recipe box. I rescued it from the family home when we moved her out about 5 years before she passed away. And then when she passed away in 2007, it wasn't until a few months after that that I actually spent some time looking at the recipe box. And so I was going through, I found the recipes for compromise cake, I found a recipe for My Man cookies, found all of these things, and then I'm going through it and I find in the middle of it is buried her teaching credential. So she had a teaching credential. She taught for exactly 1 year before she became married, went off to be a mother, be a suburban housewife in the 1950s and 60s, an epidemic time for mental illness amongst housewives during that era. Yes.
Wow.
Yes, and I've done the research into that, and it was epidemic. So it wasn't just in our family, and
was there a cause or a reason why?
it was the isolation. I mean, my mother was college educated. When she was a young woman before she got married, she wanted to have a career. She wanted to have independence, autonomy, but there were the social pressures to get married, and she didn't have the equipment. She didn't have the wherewithal to overcome those social pressures. So she went with the program of the day, which was go to the suburbs, have the children. This was a time in which it was a single car family. So the husband would drive off to work. The mother was left at home with the children and the television, and it was very isolated. And as I said, my mother was college educated. She was cultured. She enjoyed theater. She enjoyed those things in life.
Wow, at that point, the college education wasn't as easy.
No,
as today.
and
A lot of
I
people...
mean, you know, and the thing was that for a long time, you know, women should not get educations. Women should not get college educations because it made them difficult wives, I guess. You know.
So make the turn to the fruit cake as what's sitting here in front of us.
Well, to the fruit cake.
I'm not so sure I want to try and kind of want to try.
Oh,
You asked me,
okay,
you said,
all right.
When we were sitting down, I said, well, this looks delicious. And you asked me, do you like fruit cake? And I said, no. But I took a bite of it, and I have to tell you, this is really delicious. But you seem to have enhanced the recipe from your mom's.
Well, actually, my recipe is completely different.
I hid mine over here, so here it is.
Yes, yes.
It's half eaten because it's really good. So.
Well, my mother's recipe is originally from her mother-in-law, and I did my 3 generations of fruit cakes for my book, and I did my grandmother's, and then I did my mother's, which is a variation on her mother-in-law's fruit cake, and then this is my fruit cake recipe, and this is a completely different fruit cake recipe. It's not based on the family recipe. It's somebody else's family. I don't even know whose family it is at this point.
Wow.
I got it. I worked it up. I've developed it as it's got a lot of natural dried fruits in it, as opposed to a lot of candied fruits.
Right.
It has molasses and spices. It's deeper. It's richer than this particular one of my mother's, which has no eggs in it. The grandmas and mothers had no eggs in it and had applesauce in it, and because eggs, my understanding is because eggs were expensive during those period, and so they substituted applesauce. So it doesn't hold up as well. That's actually a rubber hit.
Which one am I trying? Is it this one?
I took the dark one.
This is the lighter one, and then this is the dark one, and that has eggs and butter and all of those things going on.
So I'm going to do one of each. Ooh.
Oh, and the other thing is that my mother's and grandmother's was baked in a coffee can. This was part of the
Really? That's how they did it?
Do you remember that?
I do.
And so my mother would bake them in coffee cans when I was a kid, but nobody does that anymore.
Can I taste the light one?
Yes.
This is really good. I'm taking
is
some
really
home tonight.
good.
Do you like that?
You know what? I've not had. I was like, it's warm. I'm used to the like the cold. This is like really fresh. Wow.
Oh my God.
Do you like that?
Really
No, I'm
good.
not.
Oh, good.
No, I'm not kidding.
I'm going to talk with my mouth full
I have to take
now.
the book home with me. Whoa.
And remind everybody,
thank you.
don't forget to pick up Compromise Cake. This is really delicious. This is in the book, the recipes?
It is the recipes in the book.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Do we have it on our website? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you know what? You can go to our website and get this recipe because both of us.
Yeah, the
we
book's
recommend
available
things.
online. It's in bookstores. Our website has more information on it. Thank you so much, Nancy.
Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Up next, we're heading to the garden because Shirley's out there waiting for us. Shirley?
Hey guys,